Said that the president right now is with the trade and tariff team. They are very confident that this is all going to work. But what if they're wrong?
They're not going to be wrong. It is going to work. And the president has a brilliant team of advisors who have been studying these issues for decades. And we are focused on restoring the golden age of...
Every day I think to myself that Donald Trump's administration could not stoop lower. They could not commit more atrocious crimes. I also think that Carolyn Levitt couldn't be any worse at her job. But somehow, every day, I'm proven wrong. And especially today, after we saw a breaking news article out of The Atlantic that Donald Trump's administration admitted to illegally deporting a lawful resident of the United States. And as you would expect, Carolyn Levitt had a meltdown trying to defend that disgusting action. And not just that, she was also confronted by Peter Doocy. Yes, Fox's Peter Doocy for Donald Trump's disastrous economy. We're going to get into it all, but before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already, and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button. It goes a long way, and it really does mean a lot to me. Now let's hear just the first meltdown from Levitt.
Just changing subjects for 1 second. The administration has expressed a complete confidence in how all the deportation flights to El Salvador were conducted. But now that the administration has conceded that there was an error of one Salvadoran national, will there be any reviews conducted? And does the president express any thoughts on the one error that was disclosed in court last night?
Well, first of all, the error that you are referring to was a clerical error. It was an administrative error. The administration maintains the position that this individual who was deported to El Salvador and will not be returning to our country was a member of the brutal and vicious MS-13 gang. That is fact number one. Fact number two, we also have credible intelligence proving that this individual was involved in human trafficking. And fact number three, this individual was a member, actually a leader, of the brutal MS-13 gang, which this president has designated as a foreign terrorist organization. Fact number four is that foreign terrorists do not have legal protections in the United States of America anymore, and it is within the president's executive authority and power to deport these heinous individuals from American communities. It is a promise he campaigned on. It is a promise he is keeping, and every single person in this room should be grateful for that, considering especially MS-13 is very prevalent and prominent here in the District of Columbia, in Maryland, and in Virginia. And the president, the attorney general, everyone who has been involved in these operations is focused on eradicating these criminals and terrorists from our communities.
It was not a clerical error. I don't understand how Carolyn is trying to argue that her own administration, the very people she works for, were wrong in admitting they unlawfully deported this man. The excuses she later makes in this press briefing are truly appalling. She goes on to attack this man's character without any real information, simply because her job is to act as a propagandist and a stooge for Donald Trump. And once again, she does so without any evidence.
Sure.
Thanks, Carolyn. A few questions about this deportation case. First, I wanted to clarify something that you said to Jeff a few minutes ago. You said you'd seen evidence that this man was a convicted gang member. In what court was he convicted, and for what?
This individual was an MS-13 ringleader. This individual was also engaged in human trafficking. And I'm glad you brought up this point again, because I would like to point out that if you just saw the headline from the insane, failing Atlantic magazine this morning, you would think this individual was Father of the Year, living in Maryland, living a peaceful life, when that couldn't be further from the truth. They didn't even mention in the title of that article, or even in the first paragraph, that this individual is an illegal criminal who broke our nation's immigration laws. He is a leader in the brutal MS-13 gang, and he is involved in human trafficking, and now MS-13 is a designated foreign terrorist organization. Foreign terrorists have no legal protections in the United States of America, and this administration is going to continue to deport foreign terrorists and illegal criminals from our nation's interior.
What information does Carolyn Levitt have about what type of a father this man is? What type of information does Carolyn Levitt have about anything, for that matter? I remember her first day on the job. She said, "I don't need a binder. I got it all going on up here. And since that day, there's not been a lot going on up there besides hate and anger and vengeful rage. It is just so gross. And again, she is just so bad at her job. She's not a good liar. She's not distracting. She can't deflect. And she can't even give straight answers, like when she was asked about tariffs right here.
Caroline.
Sure.
Caroline,
Sure.
The president said over the weekend that he couldn't care less if prices went up on foreign cars because people buy more American cars. There's been consensus from a lot of economists that these tariffs could raise prices on other goods as well. Is the president comfortable with Americans on Main Street paying more because of these tariffs?
The president is doing everything he can, and this entire administration is doing everything we can to bring down the cost of living in this country. An inflation mess that was fueled by the previous administration's reckless spending, overburdensome regulations that this administration is focused on slashing every single day. I just read you a statistic just from the Environmental Protective Agency alone. We're saving taxpayers money that's ultimately going to drive down inflation, and we're unleashing the might of our energy industry, which will bring down prices as well. To the heart of your question, because this is very important to the American people, you should trust what this president did for you in his first term. He effectively utilized tariffs while driving down inflation. It was a record low 1.4% when he left office, and he's focused on getting back to that. It's unfortunate the previous administration left us in this mess.
Donald Trump himself admitted that there's nothing Carolyn Levitt can do to defend him. She doesn't care if prices rise, and he doesn't care how it affects Americans. He has no concern for the fact that he's engaged in one of the most absurd trade wars in history. It doesn't bother him. Nothing seems to. But it's gotten so bad that even Fox is now questioning when Trump will realize the harm he's causing, not just to American citizens, but to the very people who put him in office. That's exactly what Peter Doocy pressed him on right here.
Peter.
Thank you, Caroline. When the president goes down to Florida on the weekends, does he ever hear from, there are so many retired folks down in Florida, does he ever hear from any retired Americans who are stressed about these wild swings in the stock market because of the tariff uncertainty, and they're sitting there on fixed income or living off a 401k, and they don't know how much money's going to be left?
Well, certainly they are legitimate concerns, and the president takes those concerns very seriously, and he's addressing them every single day. And tomorrow's announcement is to protect future generations. The senior citizens you mentioned, it's for their kids and their grandkids to ensure that there are jobs here in the United States of America for their children to live the American dream, just like they presumably did. And as for their worries about their 401ks, their Social Security, I just addressed Social Security. This president is always going to protect it for our tax-paying senior citizens. As for their 401ks, look at what President Trump did for you in his first term. He is working on implementing that economic formula every single day by lowering inflation, lowering energy prices, massive deregulatory efforts, while simultaneously effectively implementing tariffs, and they'll hear more about that announcement tomorrow.
Peter Doocy is questioning why this administration is causing so much economic hardship. You know it's bad when even Fox is calling out the Trump administration, but that's the reality. An economy in shambles and a flood of lies. Just last night, J.D. Vance was busy on Twitter trying to mislead people while responding to Pod Save America's Jon Favreau. He repeatedly had to delete his posts as his false claims were exposed. Meanwhile, Carolyn Levitt attempted to cover for him.
Everyone who's been involved in these operations is focused on eradicating these criminals and terrorists from our communities.
The Vice President said he was a convicted member of MS-13. What evidence is there to back that up?
There's a lot of evidence, and the Department of Homeland Security and ICE have that evidence, and I saw it this morning.
There's a lot of evidence, and the Department of Homeland Security and ICE have that evidence, and I saw it this morning. There's lots of evidence. Then show us where is the evidence? Where is this evidence we speak of? Because you don't want to present it. You don't want to tell us who these people are. That has been the theme, that has been what we continue to see, that they are just trying to operate out of fear, intimidation, do it in the shadows, do it where no one can see, because they know what they're doing. It's breaking the law, and when they're held accountable, they really get upset.
This administration is going to continue to deport foreign terrorists and illegal criminals from our nation's interior.
But a judge ordered that he should remain in this country. So are you saying that it is okay to ignore a judge's ruling if you don't like it?
Who does that judge work for?
He's an immigration
It was an
judge.
immigration judge who works for the Department of Justice at the direction of the Attorney General of the United States, whose name is Pam Bondi, who has committed to eradicating MS-13 from our nation's interior. And
The Trump administration keeps returning to the argument that activist judges are legislating from the bench. They point out that Donald Trump is the most injunction-blocked president in history. But have they considered that it's because he's constantly breaking the law? It's absurd to call for impeachment over this. That's why today, Jamie Raskin questioned Newt Gingrich, who for some reason was testifying before a House committee about these efforts to impeach judges.
By law, by the courts. Many of our colleagues are following Trump and Musk in calling for impeachment right now. There have been only 15 federal judges impeached in all of American history, always for serious professional misconduct, like taking bribes, stealing from the court, or habitual drunkenness, not even occasional drunkenness, habitual drunkenness on the bench. Congress has never defined a doctrinal or interpretive disagreement as a high crime and misdemeanor, much less when the judge's reasoning was airtight. Correct. The spreading movement to impeach and attack judges is so alarming that Chief Justice Roberts issued a rare statement last week. He said, for more than 2 centuries, it's been established that impeachment is not an appropriate response to disagreement concerning a judicial decision. The proper response, of course, is to appeal the decision. And to be fair, Chairman Issa expressed his strong disapproval of these wanted posters yesterday in the Rules Committee. Now, for some members, talk of impeaching these so-called rogue judges is just fun and games. But the vicious assault, the vicious rhetorical assault on the judiciary has turned into something more sinister in certain quarters. Actual violent threats, bomb threats, direct intimidation. Judge Boasberg, the Bush appointee, must endure scandalous online attacks and insults by President Trump and Elon Musk and their followers. Even worse, the campaign of vilification has spread to Judge Boasberg's family, including outrageous attacks on his daughter, who's had her photo and her place of work posted on social media by Elon Musk to his 290 million followers. These threats follow an actual bomb threat made to the sister of Supreme Court Justice Amy Coney Barrett. And there are numerous other threats taking place today. And of course, we've seen threats and actual violence and murders take place in the past. I call on my colleagues right now to call off the campaign to impeach federal judges for doing their jobs. I call on them to demand that the Trump administration comply with all judicial orders while appealing whichever ones they want to appeal, and to demand the return of people unlawfully taken to El Salvador on that so-called plane full of gangbangers. And I especially call on them today to denounce all violent threats, doxing, online vilification, and threats against our judges. This is the Judiciary Committee of the United States House of Representatives, and we should act like it. I yield. Let's zero in on Trump's executive order contradicting the very first sentence of the 14th Amendment, which says that any person born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof is a citizen of the United States. Trump got struck down by a Reagan judge, a Biden judge, an Obama judge, and a Bush judge. The Reagan judge said, I've been on the bench for 4 decades. I can't remember another case where the question presented is as clear as this one. This is a blatantly unconstitutional order. Blatantly. This is from a Reagan judge. Now, my colleagues seem to think that an executive order is greater than a law or the Constitution itself. But an executive order cannot trump a federal statute, much less the Constitution. An executive order is just an order to the executive bureaucracy to follow a policy unless and until it's countermanded by
The Law and Order Party, Law and Order, is anything but that. And it's a disgrace that they continue to refer to themselves that way. But we got to call it out. We're going to be every single day on the show. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button, you can leave a like on this video, and if you stuck around to the end, drop a blue heart in the comments or just say, "Hi, thank you for your support, and until next time, I'll see you soon."